Sam had always dreamed of owning a place where he could truly breathe. He worked long hours in the city, surrounded by traffic, tall buildings, and endless noise. Every morning he would wake up to the sound of car horns instead of birds, and every evening he would fall asleep under the glow of streetlights instead of stars. For years he carried one simple wish in his heart, a home near the water where he could spend his days in peace. That dream finally came true when he discovered a quiet lake just outside of town. It was not the largest lake, but it was wide enough to shimmer under the sun like glass and deep enough for fishing and swimming. The land around it was mostly private, with thick trees standing like silent guardians. Sam found a small house at the edge of that lake, sitting on several acres of private property. The moment he stepped onto the land and saw the reflection of the trees in the still water, he knew this was it. He signed the papers, packed his life, and moved into his new sanctuary. For months, Sam enjoyed his quiet mornings on the porch, sipping coffee as fog lifted from the lake. Sometimes he would take his canoe out, paddling gently as the sun rose. Other times he would sit on the dock and watch the fish ripple the surface. It was everything he had wanted. But Sam was not selfish. He always pictured this home as a place for family and friends, too. When summer arrived, he decided it was the perfect time to host his first big gathering. He called his close friends, people who had supported him during the long years of hard work. Mia, a cheerful woman with 2 young kids, was the first to say yes. Ben, his college friend, promised to bring his famous barbecue recipes. Anna, who had been like a sister to Sam since childhood, offered to help with everything. They were all excited to escape their busy lives for a weekend by the lake. The morning of the gathering, Sam woke early. The sky was clear, painted in soft pinks and oranges. He set up chairs on the porch, cleaned the dock, and made sure the grill was ready. As the hours passed, cars rolled in one by one. The sound of children's laughter filled the air as Mia's kids ran straight to the water, their sandals tossed aside. Ben arrived carrying bags of charcoal, grinning as if he had been waiting for this all year. Anna showed up last, carefully balancing 2 coolers packed with food and drinks. "Sam, this place is amazing," Mia said as she set down her bags. Her kids were already splashing in the shallow water, their voices echoing across the lake. Ben gave a whistle as he looked around. "Now this is living. Forget the city. I could stay out here forever." Anna smiled warmly. "You did well, Sam. I can already tell this is going to be one of those places people never forget." Sam felt his chest swell with pride. He led his friends to the dock, pointing out where the water was deep enough for swimming and showing them the canoe tied to the post. The air was filled with excitement as everyone settled into the rhythm of lake life. By noon, the grill was smoking, sending the delicious smell of burgers and hot dogs through the breeze. The kids took turns jumping off the dock, their laughter carrying across the lake. Mia spread a blanket on the grass, laying out snacks. Anna turned on some music, soft and cheerful. Sam leaned back in his chair, the sunlight warming his face, and thought to himself that this was exactly why he had bought this place. The afternoon unfolded like a perfect painting. Birds swooped low over the water, the sound of sizzling food mixed with splashes and chatter. Everyone was relaxed, and for the first time in months, Sam felt his shoulders loosen completely. But just as everything seemed perfect, something changed. Sam noticed movement near the tree line. At first he thought it was another neighbor out for a walk. The path that curved along the far side of the lake was sometimes used by dog walkers. But as the figure came closer, Sam realized this was no casual stroll. The woman walking toward them carried herself with purpose. Her steps were sharp, her shoulders stiff. She was middle-aged, with short blonde hair that bounced as she marched. Her eyes locked straight on the dock where Sam and his guests were gathered. Sam sighed quietly. He had seen this woman before, though never up close. Neighbors had mentioned her in passing, always with the same tone, half annoyed, half weary. They called her Karen, not because it was her real name, but because of the way she behaved. She was known for complaining, for scolding, and for acting like she was in charge of everything around the lake. "Who's that?" Anna asked, lowering her music. Sam watched as the woman approached. "That," he muttered, "is the person I was hoping not to deal with today." Within seconds, the woman stood at the edge of the dock, hands on her hips. Her face was tight, her voice firm as she spoke. "Excuse me," she said, her tone loud enough for everyone to hear. "What do you think you're doing here?" Mia blinked in confusion. "We're just..." Spending the day by the lake, Karen frowned. This lake is for the homeowners association. Guests are not allowed without approval. Strangers can't just come in here and take over the space. It's against the rules. Ben raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. Strangers? We're his friends. He nodded toward Sam. Karen turned her gaze sharply to Sam. And you. Don't tell me you think you can bring an entire crowd of outsiders onto community property. This isn't some public park. There are rules here, and I happen to know them better than anyone. The children had gone quiet, standing in the shallow water and watching nervously. Mia placed a protective arm around them. Anna exchanged a glance with Sam, as if asking silently how he wanted to handle this. Sam took a slow breath. He had been warned about Karen's ways. He had heard stories of her trying to stop neighbors from hosting barbecues, scolding teenagers for fishing, and even yelling at delivery drivers who parked too long. He had tried to stay out of her path, but now she was standing directly in front of him, challenging his right to enjoy his own home. Karen stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. I suggest you pack up your little party and leave before I make a formal complaint. You're disturbing the peace and breaking HOA rules. If you think I'll let this continue, you're very wrong. Ben crossed his arms, clearly ready to argue, but Sam lifted his hand to stop him. He knew there was no need to raise voices. Karen thought she held the upper hand, but she didn't know the truth. This was not HOA property. This was his private land, bought and paid for. The dock, the shoreline, the trees, everything she was standing on belonged to him, and in a moment he would let her know. But before he spoke, Sam allowed himself a small smile. He looked around at his friends, at the children, at the calm water of the lake, and he thought of all the times he had dreamed of this day. He was not about to let anyone take it away. The air felt heavy as Karen stood at the dock with her hands on her hips, her chin tilted upward as if she were the ruler of the lake. Sam's friends exchanged uneasy glances while the children clung to Mia, sensing the tension. For a moment, the cheerful sounds of laughter and splashing were replaced by silence. Even the birds seemed to pause, as if waiting for what would come next. Karen spoke again, her voice sharp. I'm not repeating myself. This lake is shared property, and I know the association rules better than anyone. No outside guests are allowed, and no loud gatherings either. You people need to leave. Right now. Sam did not rush to answer. Instead, he walked calmly toward her, his steps slow, his expression even. He knew that reacting in anger would only give her more energy to feed on. Behind him, Ben muttered under his breath, She's unbelievable. When Sam reached the edge of the dock, he stopped just a few feet from Karen. This is my land, he said clearly, his voice steady. This dock, this shoreline, all of it belongs to me. My friends are here because I invited them. No one is breaking rules because no rules apply here. This is private property. For the first time, Karen hesitated. Her eyes flickered in surprise before narrowing again. That's impossible. This entire lake is part of the association. I've lived here long enough to know how it works. Don't try to play clever games with me. Sam shook his head. I bought this land directly from the previous owner. The property deed includes full rights to this stretch of the shoreline and the water beside it. The HOA has no claim over this part. You can check the county records if you don't believe me. Behind Sam, Anna stepped forward. Her calm but firm tone added weight to his words. He's right. I've seen the paperwork myself. He owns this land. You have no authority here. Karen's mouth opened as if she were ready to fire back, but no words came immediately. For the first time since she had marched down the path, she looked unsure. The children whispered to each other, their small voices carrying a mix of fear and curiosity. Mia pulled them closer, whispering softly to reassure them. Ben, on the other hand, crossed his arms and smiled smugly. Looks like someone's been barking up the wrong tree. Karen shot him a glare, then turned her attention back to Sam. Her voice was louder now, almost desperate. Even if you own this patch of dirt, you can't just let people run wild here. We have standards. We have rules. If you keep allowing this kind of behavior, it will affect the whole community. Sam did not move. This is my property, and my guests are welcome here. We aren't disturbing anyone. We're enjoying the lake, and that's exactly what I bought this place for. You don't get to decide what happens here. The firmness in his voice carried over the water. For a moment, Karen froze, her lips pressed tightly together. Everyone could see the struggle on her face. She wanted to argue, to shout, to make them leave, but deep down she realized she had no control here. Still, she refused to back down completely. Fine, she snapped. If that's how you want to play it, then don't be surprised when I bring this up with the board. I'll make sure they know exactly what you're doing. Sam stayed calm. You can tell the board whatever you like. But the board doesn't manage my land. I do. The words hung in the air like a final bell in a boxing match. Karen turned sharply, muttering something under her breath, and stormed back up the path. Her footsteps crunched against the gravel until they faded into the distance. The group remained silent for a moment, processing what had just happened. Then Ben let out a laugh. Did you see her face? She looked like someone had just told her the world was round for the first time. Anna smiled, though her eyes still carried a trace of worry. I don't think this is the end of it. She doesn't seem like the type to let things go. Mia nodded slowly, pulling her children close. I've dealt with people like her before. She's going to try something else, I'm sure of it. Sam looked out at the water. His jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. If she does, we'll deal with it. I didn't work this hard to let someone like her ruin it. This land is mine, and I'm not afraid to stand my ground. The tension lifted slightly and life on the dock slowly returned to normal. The children, reassured by Sam's steady tone, returned to splashing in the shallow water. Mia unpacked more snacks while Ben went back to the grill. Anna adjusted the music, turning it back on with a smile. But under the surface, the shadow of Karen's interruption lingered in everyone's mind. Later that evening, after the sun had dipped low and the lake shimmered with golden light, the group sat together around a fire pit. The sound of crickets filled the air, mixing with the crackle of the flames. It was peaceful again, but Sam noticed the occasional glance his friends shared as if each of them wondered whether Karen would return. She's trouble, Ben said, leaning back in his chair. Mark my words, she's not done. She'll probably be knocking on some office door tomorrow morning, filing complaints and waving her arms around. Anna sipped her drink thoughtfully. She's the kind of person who thrives on control. When someone takes that control away, she doesn't just walk away quietly. She'll try to get it back. Mia hugged her children close as they sat wrapped in blankets. I just hope she doesn't make things ugly. The kids don't need to see more of that. Sam poked at the fire with a stick, his eyes on the glowing embers. No matter what she tries, she can't change the truth. The deed is clear. This land is mine. I'll stand by it, and she'll have no choice but to accept it sooner or later. Though his words were steady, Sam's mind was restless. He thought of how easily a single person could disrupt a peaceful day. He thought of how many stories he had already heard about Karen, and now he understood why the neighbors always sounded tired when they mentioned her. He realized he might be stepping into an ongoing battle, one that could test his patience more than he expected. Still, as he looked around at his friends smiling in the glow of the fire, he felt renewed determination. He had bought this place for joy, for peace, and for memories like these. He would not let anyone strip that away. As the fire burned lower and the stars filled the sky, Sam promised himself he would be ready for whatever came next. And deep in the quiet of the night, as the water rippled gently against the dock, a thought crossed his mind. Karen was not finished. She had walked away, but her silence would not last for long. The night had passed quietly at the lake house. Sam woke early the next morning to the sound of birds calling through the trees and the soft ripple of water against the dock. The air was crisp, carrying the scent of pine and dew. He stepped outside with a cup of coffee in hand, letting the cool breeze brush his face. For a while, the world felt peaceful again, as if the events of the day before had been only a bad dream. But deep down, Sam knew it had not ended. Karen had left in anger, her pride wounded, and she was not the type to simply forget. By mid-morning, Mia's kids were back in the water, splashing and laughing as if nothing had happened. Ben was frying eggs and bacon on a skillet over the fire pit, while Anna organized the cooler. The group carried on with cheerful chatter, but Sam's mind was alert, watching the path through the trees. He half expected Karen to reappear at any moment, her sharp voice cutting through the air again. Sure enough, by late morning, movement on the path caught his eye. This time Karen was not alone. She walked briskly, holding a clipboard in her hand, and behind her came a man in a neatly pressed shirt and slacks. His hair was combed back and he wore glasses that glinted in the sun. He had the look of someone used to paperwork, rules, and authority. Sam set down his cup and called quietly to his friends. Looks like round 2 is starting, Ben muttered. She brought backup. Mia frowned, pulling her kids out of the water just in case. Anna straightened, ready to stand by Sam again. Karen's voice carried ahead of her as she approached. There he is. I told you this would be happening. Rules are being broken and it has to stop. The man beside her adjusted his glasses and glanced around the property. He seemed calm, not nearly as fiery as Karen, but his expression was serious. Karen stopped at the dock again, pointing toward Sam and his friends. See, just as I said. Outsiders, loud gatherings, and total disregard for community standards. This man thinks he can ignore everything we stand for here. Sam stood tall, his voice steady. Good morning. Can I help you? The man cleared his throat. My name is Mr. Harris. I'm on the Homeowners Association board. Karen informed me that there was a gathering happening here that might violate community guidelines. I came to speak with you directly. Sam nodded politely. I appreciate you coming, Mr. Harris, but let me be clear from the start. This is my private property. It is not part of the HOA. My guests are here with my permission and we aren't violating any rules because the HOA doesn't apply here. Karen scoffed, crossing her arms. That's what he keeps saying, but I don't buy it. Everyone knows this lake belongs to the association. He's just twisting words to get his way. Sam stayed calm, his voice even. I'm not twisting anything. I bought this land from the previous owner, and the deed includes rights to the shoreline and water by my property. You can check the records at the county office. They are clear. Mr. Harris shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the clipboard in Karen's hands. Do you have a copy of the deed here? Anna stepped forward before Sam could answer. Yes, he does. I helped him organize all the paperwork when he moved in. If you need proof, he can get it. Karen's face flushed red. You don't need to see anything. I've lived here long enough to know how things are run. He's lying and you're letting him get away with it. Mr. Harris held up a hand to quiet her. Karen, please. If there is a deed, then we must respect what it says. We cannot assume. Sam turned and walked calmly to the house. Within minutes, he returned with a folder in his hands. He opened it carefully, pulled out the property deed and handed it to Mr. Harris. The man adjusted his glasses again, reading the document slowly. The silence stretched as the group waited. Karen tapped her foot impatiently, her face growing tighter with every passing second. Finally, Mr. Harris looked up. It appears Mr. Sam is correct. The deed clearly states this section of shoreline, including the dock, is private land not governed by the association. The HOA has no authority here. Ben smirked, unable to hide his satisfaction. Mia breathed a sigh of relief and Anna nodded firmly. Karen, however, exploded. That can't be right. There must be a mistake. Everyone follows the rules, everyone. If he doesn't, then it isn't fair. How can one man own part of the lake? That ruins everything. Mr. Harris shook his head. I understand your frustration, Karen, but the law is the law. If the deed says it, then that's final. The HOA has no jurisdiction here. Sam spoke gently, though his words carried strength. I'm not here to ruin anything. I love this lake as much as anyone. But this land is mine. I want to live peacefully, not argue over rules that don't apply to me. Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. She looked as if she were searching for words but found none. For a moment, her confidence faltered. She turned to Mr. Harris, desperate for support, but he only handed the deed back to Sam and said, I believe this settles the matter. With that, he gave a polite nod and started back up the path. Karen lingered, her fists clenched at her sides, her face burning with anger and humiliation. Finally, with a sharp turn of her heel, she followed him, her footsteps heavy and quick. The group on the dock watched her leave. Ben laughed out loud. I thought she was going to fall into the water when he read the deed. Anna shook her head, though a small smile played on her lips. Don't celebrate too quickly. People like her don't give up just because they're wrong. She'll be back with something new. Mia hugged her children close, her voice soft but worried. I just hope she doesn't make it worse. She looked furious. Sam folded the deed carefully back into the folder. He kept his expression calm, but inside he felt the weight of Anna's warning. He knew Karen was not finished. She had been embarrassed twice now, once by him and once by the HOA board member she had brought for backup. That kind of humiliation could spark even more stubbornness. As the day went on, the group tried to push the encounter out of their minds. They went fishing on the dock, roasted marshmallows in the afternoon, and took the canoe out across the water. The children laughed freely again, their earlier fear forgotten. For a time, the lake house felt like the peaceful retreat Sam had always imagined. But late in the evening, as the sun set in fiery orange and red across the horizon, Sam caught sight of movement on the far side of the lake. A figure stood among the trees, watching quietly. It was too far to be sure, but Sam felt certain he knew who it was. Karen was not finished. She was planning her next move, and Sam could feel it in the pit of his stomach. The evening after Mr. Harris had left, the lake was still and quiet. The sky turned deep blue, and stars began to shine one by one. Sam's friends gathered around the fire pit again, laughing and sharing stories, but Sam's mind was restless. He could not forget the way Karen had looked when she walked away, her face red, her fists tight, her eyes filled with anger. He knew she was not finished. People like her never stopped at one defeat. She had gone to the HOA board expecting victory, but instead the truth had embarrassed her. That humiliation would burn in her mind, and she would search for another way to fight. The next morning started peacefully. Mia prepared pancakes while the children played by the dock. Ben stretched and talked about going fishing. Anna walked along the edge of the lake, enjoying the fresh air. Sam tried to relax, but his thoughts kept circling back to Karen. By mid-morning, his worry proved right. A loud noise came from the road near his property. Sam stepped outside and saw 2 trucks parked along the gravel path. Out of them came men in uniforms carrying clipboards, tool belts, and measuring sticks. Karen walked behind them, her arms folded, her smile sharp and satisfied. Ben was the first to notice. "Oh no, what now?" The men approached the house with Karen leading the way. One of them, tall and serious-looking, called out, "Good morning. We're here to perform an inspection." Sam frowned. "Inspection of what?" Karen stepped forward proudly. "I contacted the county. I reported that you may have built unapproved structures on this property. If you didn't get the right permits, you'll be fined, and that dock of yours might have to come down." Mia gasped softly. Anna narrowed her eyes. Ben muttered something under his breath and crossed his arms. Sam stayed calm. He looked at the inspectors. "You're welcome to check the property, but everything here was already built before I bought it. The dock, the house, the shed, none of it is new. I made sure of that when I purchased it. I have the papers to prove it." The inspectors nodded. "We'll still need to confirm. It won't take long." Karen smirked as if she had already won. She followed the inspectors as they walked toward the dock, pointing things out with exaggerated gestures. "Look at that wood. It doesn't look safe. The railing is too low, and the shed too close to the water. I told you this whole place is a mess." Sam walked with them, his voice steady. "The dock was inspected years ago. The shed was built with approval from the county. You'll see when you check the records." The inspectors measured, wrote notes, and took photos. Karen hovered nearby, her eyes gleaming with satisfaction every time one of them jotted something down. To her, each note was a victory. After nearly an hour, the inspectors gathered near the fire pit. One of them looked at Sam. "Everything here checks out. The dock is within guidelines and the shed is properly placed. You're clear." Karen's smile dropped instantly. "What? That can't be right. You must have missed something. Look again. There has to be a violation." The inspector shook his head. "No violations here. Everything is legal and safe. Thank you for your cooperation, sir." He gave Sam a polite nod before leading his team back to the trucks. Karen stood frozen, her face pale with disbelief. No, this isn't possible." She looked at Sam, her voice rising. "You're lying to everyone. There has to be something wrong with this property. I won't stop until I find it." Sam met her glare with calm strength. "You can search as much as you want, but the truth will stay the same. This land is mine, and it's in perfect order." Karen's hands trembled with anger. She turned sharply, storming back toward the road. The sound of her footsteps faded into the distance, but her fury lingered in the air. Ben let out a loud laugh once she was gone. "She thought she had you this time. Did you see her face when they said everything was fine? Priceless." Anna, though smiling slightly, looked thoughtful. "This isn't the end. Every time she fails, she gets angrier. That kind of person doesn't back off. She's going to try again." Mia hugged her children, her voice soft. "I wish she would stop." "The kids don't need to see so much fighting." Sam nodded. "I know, and I'll do everything I can to keep this place peaceful. But if she keeps pushing, then I'll have to stand firm." The group tried to return to normal, but everyone felt the tension. The day went on with fishing, swimming, and cooking. Yet all of them kept glancing at the road, half expecting Karen to reappear. That evening, As the sun dipped behind the trees, Sam took a walk along the shoreline. The water reflected the colors of the sky, calm and steady. He thought about Karen's determination, about how much energy she spent trying to control others. He wondered what drove her. Was it pride, fear of losing authority, or just a habit of always needing to be right? Whatever it was, Sam knew one thing. He could not let her win. Not because of pride, but because of principle. He had worked too hard for this land, and his friends deserved to enjoy it without harassment. As he stood on the dock, a rustle in the trees made him turn. Across the lake, barely visible in the fading light, a figure stood watching. Sam could not see the face clearly, but he knew who it was. Karen, silent and still, watching his every move. Sam clenched his jaw but did not move. He stayed on the dock, staring back across the water, unflinching. He wanted her to know he was not afraid, that her schemes would not break him. Finally, the figure disappeared into the trees. The night grew darker, and Sam returned to the fire pit where his friends waited. Was she there again? Anna asked quietly. Yes, Sam replied. His voice was calm, but his eyes were sharp with determination. She's watching, and I think she's planning something bigger. Ben frowned. Let her try. We'll stand with you. Mia nodded. We're not leaving you to face her alone. Sam looked at his friends, grateful for their support. The firelight flickered on their faces, warm and steady. He knew the battle was not over, but he also knew he was not alone. The lake was quiet again, but beneath the silence, tension ran like a current. Sam could feel it. Karen's anger growing, her determination hardening. The storm was coming, and he would be ready to face it. The lake was calm the next morning, and the sunlight stretched over the water like a golden blanket. Sam sat on the porch with a cup of tea in his hand, thinking about everything that had happened. The days of tension, arguments, and misunderstandings had left him drained yet hopeful. For the first time in weeks, he felt like things were finally beginning to settle. He looked toward the lake, where the reflection of the tall trees shimmered on the surface. His land was quiet, peaceful, and filled with the promise of a new beginning. Yet Sam knew the story was not over. The final chapter between him, the lake, and the HOA still had to be written. The letter from the HOA a few days later, an envelope arrived. It was stamped with the HOA's name, written in bold letters at the top. Sam opened it carefully and read through the notice. The HOA board was calling for a final meeting to discuss the matter of the lake and his property rights. They wrote that this meeting would be their official attempt to resolve the dispute. Sam smiled slightly. He had been waiting for this moment. He already had his deeds, maps, and the lawyer's written explanation ready. This meeting would not be about who shouted the loudest, but about facts. Still, he knew that people like Karen would not give up easily. When Mia visited later that evening, she saw the letter on the table. So it's finally happening, she said. Sam nodded. Yes, this will be the day they realize the truth once and for all. Ben, who had joined them, leaned back in his chair. Do you think Karen will back down? Sam gave a thoughtful look. She may not, but the truth will stand. That is what matters most. The day of the meeting. The day of the HOA meeting arrived. The community center was filled with neighbors, some curious, others impatient. At the front sat the HOA board members, including Karen, who had taken a seat with a look of victory already painted on her face. Sam walked in with calm confidence. He carried a neat folder in one hand, and his lawyer, Mr. Harris, walked beside him. The room grew quiet when they entered. Sam felt the weight of every eye on him, but he did not flinch. The chairperson of the HOA, Mr. Lewis, opened the meeting. We are here to discuss the ongoing conflict regarding the lake usage and property boundaries. Both parties will be allowed to present their cases. Karen stood quickly. This man has been letting outsiders onto the lake, she said loudly. This is a community lake. It belongs to the HOA. He has no right to treat it like his personal property. Murmurs spread through the room. Some nodded at her words, while others frowned, tired of the conflict. Sam waited patiently until the chairperson turned to him. You may respond now. Sam rose slowly and placed his folder on the table. This lake, he began, does not belong to the HOA. It is part of my private land. I bought it with the property, and I have the documents to prove it. He opened the folder and laid out the survey maps. They clearly showed the lake boundaries drawn within his land. He then placed the deed and the written statement from the county office. These are official records. They confirm the lake is private property, Mr. Harris, his lawyer, added. This has been verified by the county. The HOA has no legal claim over this lake. The room grew silent.
Karen's face turned pale.
She tried to speak, but her words caught in her throat. Karen's reaction, Karen stood quickly, her chair scraping against the floor. This can't be right, she snapped. That lake has always been part of the HOA. Everyone knows it. Mr. Lewis leaned forward to study the documents. His brow furrowed as he looked at the clear evidence. Finally, he spoke. The documents are valid. The land, including the lake, does indeed belong to Mr. Sam. The HOA has no rights over it. The decision was final. The whispers in the room grew louder. Some neighbors smiled in relief, happy that the argument had reached an end. Others looked embarrassed for having supported the wrong side. Karen stood frozen, her face red with anger. She had fought so hard, yet the truth had been revealed in front of everyone. For the first time, she had nothing to say. Sam looked at her calmly and said, "This is my private land. My friends and family are welcome here, and no one has the right to push them away." Karen lowered her eyes and quickly gathered her things. Without another word, she left the room. Peace returns. After the meeting, many neighbors approached Sam. Some apologized for doubting him, while others offered warm congratulations. One elderly neighbor said, "I'm glad you stood your ground. This place should always be enjoyed the way you intended." Sam thanked them kindly. He wasn't looking for praise, but he was glad that the truth was clear. The lake would no longer be a battlefield. It could return to being a place of peace. When he returned home that evening, Mia and Ben were waiting for him at the porch. They had heard the news already. "So it's over?" Mia asked with a smile. "Yes," Sam said, sitting down. "It's over. The lake is ours and no one can take that away." Ben laughed. "I wish I had been there to see Karen's face when the documents were read." Sam chuckled softly. "It was a sight I will never forget." A new beginning in the weeks that followed, the lake house returned to its normal life. Children played on the dock, families laughed around the grill, and friends paddled boats across the calm water. The heavy shadow of conflict was gone, replaced by joy and freedom. Sam took long walks by the shore, often stopping to watch the sunset. He felt grateful for the journey he had taken. The struggle had been long and stressful, but it had shown him the importance of patience and truth. One evening, as the golden light faded across the lake, Sam turned to Mia and Ben. "This place is more than just land. It is a reminder that peace is worth fighting for." They nodded, smiling at the calm water. From that day on, the lake was no longer just a piece of property. It became a symbol of courage, patience, and the value of standing firm in the face of unfairness. Sam had claimed not only his land but also his peace of mind. And every time the sun set over the lake, casting its last rays on the quiet water, Sam knew the battle had been worth it.